Hello, I am Hugo Amaya, as you already know that, and this is my Deconstructing Political Media project video. And I was given the topic of women's reproductive rights, and especially looking at that through interest groups. And this topic is very in right now, and it's been discussed over in many CNN, Fox News, yeah, and it's very current, and it's been talked about everywhere. It's a hot topic. And when looking at it about interest groups, I focused on the NRAL, which is a pro-choice organization. It's NRAL stands for the National Abortion and Reproductive Rights Action League. And since it is pro-choice, it focuses on protecting the reproductive rights of women, especially their access to abortion, and maintaining that they are not taken away, they're not restricted, and that they're not forced to have a child that they don't want. And the video that I focused on mainly was a video where the president of the NRAL, Elise Hogue, is talking with Alex Wagner, an American journalist, on her TV show. And it was mainly focused on the clinic closures in Texas, which has occurred because of certain acts and the laws that have been signed into place in the state of Texas, which are very restrictive and hold clinics to certain standards that they are not really supposed to be. I mean, it's standards they're supposed to be aligned to this, but it's really not that necessary, and it's just put into place to by pro-life and bias and more conservative judges and governors, and it's just a lot of bias in that area in the government of the state of Texas, which is of course conservative, as history has proven. Um, as the title suggests, Alex Wagner, pro-choice, and the the main thing that the title suggested was that both of them, in the first few moments, you instantly get both of them are on the same page. They both see that the clinic closures and everything that had been put into place by the state of Texas is not helping women. It is in fact hurting them. And the linkage between the position and the overall issue is that this is happening in one state, and it's happening in the state of the state of Texas, and the clinic closures, it is also trying to be done in many of the other southern, more conservative states, Louisiana, Alabama, and so on and so forth. And the main thing is that the NRAL does not want this to spread out and to happen in many other states, and then eventually force that many of the clinics are closed and women are stranded and forced into quote unquote desperate situations in which they have no choice but to have the child or drive 7, 11, 12 hours to get to an abortion clinic. Just to get an abortion, they have to drive back. And they don't want them to be like forced into those situations. And the message in the video was mostly one-sided, since it does not it does talk about the other positions of the other the other side of the argument, but it does not give actual facts that have been used. I mean, it does disprove one of the sources that was used in the passing of these laws, and it just shows how biased the eventual ruling was. And the reporter, Alex Wagner is more is of course pro-choice and aligned with the pro-choice president. It drives the video and the argument to be mostly one-sided. And excuse me, running out of breath. The topic about the issue is the state of Texas and the abortion restrictions, and so on and so forth. As for like word choice that they used mostly throughout the video was they emphasized on the millions of women that are being affected by this, and millions and millions and millions and millions, making the number that the fact that there are a lot of women that are being affected, that is like drawing on. When I heard of that, and I was like, wow, millions of women are going to be affected, and that drew me in more. And then health crisis, which and health crisis, nobody wants to hear that, and then desperate situations, and quickly hearing that made me draw into more towards the topic and made me sympathize with these women that would potentially be drawn into these situations, and just made me not want them to be in that and maybe want to be pro-choice. I was already pro-choice, but this pushes me along and makes me more invested in the topic, and the audience would be more drawn in with to be pro-choice. I showed this video to my family as well, and instantly after the video finished, I asked them what jumped out at them, and they said, "Oh, health crisis, desperate situations, and millions. That millions of women would be affected," and those were the words that quickly like sunk in with them, and it made them sympathize with these women, and connotations that these words would have would probably it would draw in the audience and make them more invested into the topic, and make them think about what is going on in Texas and how they can possibly help, and make sure that this doesn't happen in other states, and especially California. It probably won't happen because they're not that conservative, but who knows? It's America. We elected Trump, for Christ's sake. And what is the author's argument and claim? What are some other author's assumptions? Mainly the assumptions that the speaker, President Elise Hogue of the NARAL, is mainly putting forth is that many of the millions of women that are of reproductive age could potentially have babies or be impregnated, when that in fact is probably not the case. I mean, there is possibility for it to happen, but there is no hard evidence that all of these millions of women will be put into these situations. And that was like kind of made me question of like some of part of her argument, but it was something that an assumption that I just it wasn't too valid, and the rest of her argument didn't sound, but that was a little iffy for me. Of course, pro-choice, and how does the author refute the opposing viewpoint? And especially in one point when she's talking about one of the people, Vincent, I forgot his last name, and he was opposing to was pro-life, and he had no medical credentials, and she focused on how that he had no right to say that abortion clinics could cause death, and abortion could cause death, and that was one of the things that allowed the laws to be put into place and the eventual ruling. And she just focuses on discrediting everything that was used to put these things into place, and the laws into place, and that is how she refutes the opposing argument. And it honestly works. Like, as soon as she said this guy had no medical credentials, no medical background, and the fact that the judges on the circuit court were biased and were conservative, and that they would also want to be pro-life and to put these laws into place and to make it more biased, it just made me feel like there's something wrong here, and I would be more vested in the topic, and I would not want this to be the case. And it would bring in more supporters if more people saw this video, and more people saw this video, more people would be invested into the topic and just be drawn in. And this really deepened my understanding of the overall topic. I mean, I knew a little bit, but I didn't know it this much. And it does show the other side of the argument and how wrong sometimes they are, and how much what lengths they will go to, that they will use people with no medical credentials to put forth a point that put forth something that really isn't that necessary. And it just shows how politics kind of messed up at times. And yeah, so that's my conclusion. I conclude that there's bias, and it is wrong. And there has to be more hard evidence than just someone stating something and people saying, "Oh, he's correct. Oh, yeah, etc." But they can't do that. It has to have hard evidence, medical credentials, and it has to be someone credible that to put forth these allegations. If not, and if they don't, if you use someone with no experience to do it, it just shows how weird and messed up the situation is. Yeah. In the end, thank you for sitting through this 10-minute video of me ranting.